John Heyman reported that Trevor Bauer is looking for a 5 to 6 year deal worth around 36 to 40 million, which is a whole lot of money. In this video, I'm going to talk about that rumor. If it's true or not, we're not quite sure because Bauer already said it was fake news. But should the Mets do this? Because I've said a lot that I think the Mets could really use Trevor Bauer, but if it's for this price, I might have to say otherwise. If you guys like this kind of video, make sure to leave a like, comment down below. What do you think about this rumor? If it's true, would you sign Bauer? I'm guessing most of you guys would because a lot of you don't want him to begin with. And I understand that, but like I've said before, I just think compared to the other options, Bauer is better, and the Mets need top-tier starting pitching when we look at the other teams like the Braves, Dodgers, and Padres. And as always, make sure to subscribe. We're working our way towards 700 subscribers. Makes my day. And if you are subscribed already, tell a friend and they can subscribe just to keep the channel growing, and talking to you guys in the comment section is always a lot of fun. So let's get right into it. This is a very big number to try to match because the average annual value of around 36 million is what Gerrit Cole got. And we know the Yankees right now, because of the other contracts they have, even though they are the Yankees, they're not looking to make any big-time moves right now because of the contract of Gerrit Cole along with Giancarlo Stanton. So you don't want the Mets or your favorite team to be in this kind of scenario where you're paying a guy $36 million, and if he doesn't perform, that's even bigger disaster. But the fact that if you do this contract, you don't really have many other options unless you're a team like the Toronto Blue Jays that has a ton of other space after this contract. But for the Mets, I mean, with the way they're set up right now, their current payroll, luxury tax, all that, it's around in the 150 million, low 150 million range, and the luxury tax is 210. So you're looking at around 50 plus million to spend, and if you're giving around 36 to 40 to Bauer, all of a sudden you have a little under 20 million, around 15 million left to spend. That means no shot at George Springer. So if Bauer does want anything close to 36 million, 35 million even, no shot you're getting Bauer and Springer. So that definitely is a red flag, no doubt about it. Let's say you're like, okay, well, we got Bauer. We don't need two big-time players. Let's get somebody else instead. Well, the somebody else, you could probably get a Brad Hand, maybe Liam Hendricks, and then you only have around 5 million left to spend. That's it. So if you want to make any other little depth moves, like getting another outfielder or perhaps a little more starting pitching depth, which the Mets could still use, you can't really do that because you have given so much money to Bauer. You're now right at the tax, and you're saying, wait a minute, this isn't the Wilpons anymore. Steve Cohen took over. We shouldn't have to worry about how much does it cost. We shouldn't have to worry about what the luxury tax is. That doesn't matter because we have Steve Cohen. He has so much money. True. But what happens is that once you go over that tax, every time you make a move, any player you get, you're going to get taxed more and more and more. So you're going to be spending this crazy amount of money. And if you want Steve Cohen to say, okay, well, let's get Bauer and then let's get either Springer or let's get Hendricks and somebody else or LeMay, whoever you want. All of a sudden, now you're like, oh, well, I really want to retain Michael Conforto. Okay, now that contract just costs way more than it should. Oh, I want to keep P. Alonso. That contract costs way too much. I want to keep Syndergaard. Contract costs a lot. You know, if you wanted to re-sign Stroman, because next year you're still going to need another starting pitcher once Stroman's deal is over. Obviously, Syndergaard as well being expiring free agent. So the Mets have to make a lot of different moves. And if you're giving this much money to Bauer, it makes it a lot tougher to do these other moves. If you want to take on a contract like the way you saw the Padres do with Yu Darvish, or the way other teams have in the past with taking on a big contract like the Mets somehow dumbly did with Robinson Cano, you cannot do that anymore because, again, it's just going to cost you so much more. As Steve Cohen has said time and time again, he wants financial flexibility. He said there probably will be a time when the Mets do go over the cap, and that will happen eventually, but you just want to build the team first. This team is not ready to go yet. This team is not fully built yet. So if you do something to start rotation, if it is Bauer, which I don't think it is if it's going to be this price, but let's say it's Sagano if you could get him and he doesn't go to another team, but you do get some starting pitcher, whoever it is, and you try to get George Springer or maybe some other center fielder with Jackie Bradley Jr., and you try to make some other little moves to the bullpen or around the team. Let's see how it plays out. Let's see how the team does, and then you go from there because you're like, okay, well, this team did pretty good. We made the playoffs, but, you know, we lost in the first round. We lost in the second round. And why did we lose? Okay, we're going to re-sign Conforto. We're going to re-sign Syndergaard. Let Betances walk. Let Familia walk. And now we could try to get the other pieces we need that we feel like could take us to the next level. But if you give up all your money this offseason, then all of a sudden it's hard to do that. So you get to just go year to year. And I think it's very important to keep in mind that Steve Cohen has a long-term mindset. He's not just looking at, okay, we're going for it all this year and that's it. And then, you know, we're done for. No, he's looking at every single year. What could the Mets do in the offseason? What could they do in free agency or with a trade potentially. So they're going to, like they said, they're going to build up the farm system. They're going to try to have that long-term financial flexibility because each offseason, Cohen could do something different to address the team's different areas, or even if they don't have needs per se, you always could upgrade your team because while you feel like, oh, you know what, we have Jimenez right now. Since we have Jimenez, we don't need a better shortstop, but you still could get a better shortstop. You definitely could still upgrade that position because he is not a proven commodity quite yet, only a rookie season. His offense wasn't through the roof. He showed some promise, but not exactly this guy you could count on every single day to be a big-time offensive contributor. No, that's not exactly Jimenez's game quite now. Will it ever be? We'll see. But if you had somebody like Lindor, who's in the next offseason, or Correa, or Javi Baez, or Trevor Story, Corey Seager, you'd probably rather have those guys than Andres Jimenez. So that could be something you do next offseason. But if you gave up all your money this offseason, it's much harder to do that. So that's why you've got to keep this in mind. And that is why, even though I've said time and time again, I want Trevor Bauer on this team, if it's at this price or anywhere close to this price, I'm not doing it. Because first of all, a 5 to 6 year contract is already super risky as it is, especially for a guy that's been inconsistent in his career. We know the career ERA in the 4s, so there definitely was risk to begin with. But if you're giving him 5 to 6 years, that is putting a whole lot of risk. Because even if he's good the first couple years, what are you going to do those other few years, especially at such a high cost? Because again, it would mess up the financial flexibility. The other problem is that if you got Bauer, you can't really do other things. And the Mets are still not in a position where they are one player away. The Mets still need multiple players. So if you just got the one player in Bauer, you can't get the multiple players that you actually do need. And even though the Mets do need pitching, I just think that it was Sagano, or unfortunately these other guys I've talked about all the time, Tanaka or Rizzi, Kluber, I feel like you could get them at such a lower cost. It would allow you to do more things. It makes it much more feasible to sign George Springer and maybe get a Brad Hand or Liam Hendricks or whatever else you want to do for the team. So if this report is true, I no longer want Trevor Bauer as a member of the New York Mets. If he's under $30 million, I much more be willing to do it. If 5 years is the most, I would go, because I know that, like, even though ideally you're like, oh, let's give him a 2-year contract, $20 million a year. He's not taking that because he's going to get a better offer elsewhere. So why would he accept that with the Mets? You have to be realistic here. So I think realistically, 5 years, $25 million per year, I'd have to consider it. I have to see what happens with George Springer. Again, like, Springer has got to make up his mind because he's really pretty much handcuffing the Mets, because the Mets can't do anything until they know what George Springer is doing. And Sagano's deadline is coming up, so are the Mets going to get him? Are they not going to get him? These big dominoes, they got to start falling. Somebody has to make a move, whether it's Real Muto or LeMahieu or Bauer or Springer. Somebody has to do something just to set the market. So we'll see if this report is true or not based on when Trevor Bauer signs, what kind of deal he gets. That will tell us if the rumor was true. But until the next one, be safe, be smart, be healthy, and let's go Mets.